Media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
What is going on, y'all? Excuse me. Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where masculinity has not been recalled and faith has not been neutered. Today is Tuesday, March 3rd. It's already March 3rd in the year of our Lord 2026. And we're not just talking politics. We are in spiritual warfare, and suicidal empathy is dressed up as progress. So we're done pretending. We're done pulling punches, and we are not going to apologize. So if you're looking for weighted blankets and a safe space, you are in the way wrong place. Way wrong place. And I mean, there has been a lot going on lately. And as I was prepping for the show, some things came up, and it's almost like analysis paralysis. There's so much to talk about. So we are going to jump right in. And because of some of the things that happened recently, as I was prepping the show, I may not get to everything that I had planned. So we shall see. So America, under the Don Road Doctrine, has finally projected leadership and strength overseas. And of course, within hours, the meltdown began. We had precision strikes all throughout the Middle East. And the chat is already jumping off. Somebody would like a weighted blanket and a safety pin in a safe space. Oh, BZ, that's thanks for that. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. The loudest voices that we saw as a result of this weren't condemning our enemies. They were condemning America. But of course. And that strength, despite all their protestations, doesn't create chaos. It exposes the people who can't handle it. And so we're going to break down what happened, what it means, and why the courage of our convictions and not hysteria is going to determine whether or not a nation stands or fractures. So let's get after it. So, as we all know now, we have struck Iran and have continued to strike Iran, and under Operation Epic Fury. And this was a joint attack between the US and Israel. And of course, everyone is saying we did it because of Israel. And of course, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. But we have now had 6 at the last report I saw, 6 U.S. service members killed in action. And that is sad and unfortunate. And a number seriously wounded. I haven't been able to nail down an exact number, but we have destroyed Iran's Navy. We have absolutely destroyed Iran's Navy, which is, that is awesome. And we just had senior regime targets eliminated. In the first strikes, it was 48 or 49 of the top leaders. And what I was talking about that happened this morning as I was prepping the show, as they were gathering to choose their new supreme leader, that meeting was struck and eliminated all of them. So the head of the snake has been pretty much wiped out. This is no longer a proxy war. This is an overt war. And I know not everybody, people who have no critical thinking skills are all upset that they're saying President Trump lied and got us into another regime change war, got us into another endless war. It's a distraction for the Epstein files, all the typical nonsense. The fact is, this absolutely had to happen. One way or another, it had to happen. And it was going to happen whether we were going to end up in this conflict one way or another. If Bribin or some other leftist was in office, we would get pulled in because they would be attacking. They would be attacking us. President Trump has eliminated that possibility for the foreseeable future. But how did we actually get to this point? We got to this point through years of appeasement, through years of proxy warfare, shipping harassment in the Gulf, pressure campaigns in the Straits, sending attacking us through their proxies, attacking our allies through their proxies. Just your typical Islamic jihadist actions. And we told ourselves, we were the adults in the room. We told ourselves it was manageable. We told ourselves that they weren't really a threat. And of course, they were. It wasn't. And now we're here. Deterrence doesn't fail overnight. It erodes when weakness goes unanswered. And we've been going and letting their attacks go unanswered for 47 years. You can go back to the hostage crisis in 79 and 80. You can go back to the Marine barracks bombing in 83. I believe it was 83. I mean, just for 47 years, they have been harassing us, and we've just been letting it go. We've been ignoring it. We've been appeasing them. And President Trump and the Don Road Doctrine said, we're not doing that anymore. And I've said this I've said this a number of times since this whole thing kicked off. This has been pretty much a global reset in the world order. Because when you think, and not just with this, but when you think back to not that long ago when we went to Venezuela and grabbed Maduro and took control of their oil. So now we have control of that. This attack in Iran has cut off China's oil. China is in some trouble now because they're not going to be getting discounted oil from Iran, and they're not going to be able to circumvent all of the sanctions. So, and and not only that, but with Iran's attacks on the other Gulf states, on the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Oman, attacking those entities, and I've said this before, attacking those entities that would have at the very least been neutral, if not on their side, they've now turned them against them. That was made possible by Donald Trump's Middle East strategy. That was made possible by the Abraham Accords. That was made possible by everything that he has done up to this point. 10 or 15 years ago, that would have been unthinkable. Having all of the Gulf states turn on Iran would have been unthinkable. Yet here we are. This is a global reset. And of course, the left, they just can't see it because their hatred for Donald Trump clouds everything else in their orbit. They can't see anything beyond their hatred for him. And their hatred for him is, that's based on a whole host of things that we can get into some other time. But choking the oil supply out of Tehran puts the squeeze on all of the energy in Beijing. And that is a fantastic thing. All without firing a shot at China. And so Iran pissed off all of the Gulf states, and don't get me wrong, those Muslim states probably still hate us. I mean, they're still Muslims, but they love money more. They love money more than they hate us, and we can use that. We are using that. Violence is bad for business. You see that in mob movies all the time. Violence is bad for business. And they see opportunities for business. And Tehran was getting in the way of that. So Iran is done. I had in my notes it was likely done, but that was before Israel just took out all of the other leadership that was voting on the new supreme leader. So, so that is going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the coming days. One of the things, though, that this brings up is retaliation. And we know that Iran has tried to retaliate, and we're degrading their ability to retaliate every day, every hour. But as a result of the open border policy that has allowed who knows how many Iranian, Middle Eastern, Islamic jihadists into the country and form sleeper cells. This could be this is not could be, this is going to be an issue. And we just saw it in Austin, which we'll get to here in a little bit. And Canada just saw it in Canada, which we'll also talk about. But there is an asymmetrical retaliation risk. We have lone wolf attacks, like we saw in Austin. There are sleeper cells, cyber operations that could be ramping up, targeting of infrastructure. I mean, what we're seeing happen over there is fantastic. I completely support it, but we have to remain vigilant here too. And that's not paranoia. That's the reality of the situation. And we know how divided the left and the right are in this country. This put that on full display. The left frames this as a reckless escalation, which is completely ridiculous and ignoring 47 years of history. The right correctly frames this as long overdue response and deterrence. And the public as a whole, most people don't want a war, don't want to see war, but they understand what's happening. They understand what's at stake. The hardcore leftists notwithstanding. There's no version of strength. There's no version of projecting strength that doesn't offend someone, especially people who really don't live in reality, which is the American left. Let's be honest. Peace through strength, which is President Trump's doctrine, is it's only believable if there is an overt display of strength that is believable. And that's what this was. That's exactly what this was. So where do we go from here? We're going to continue until we completely wipe out their ability to do anything for generations. At least that has been the stated plan. We will see if that actually takes place. I believe it will. I believe that it will. I will be upset if they don't follow through completely. We also, even though they have stated that it's not our responsibility, we also would like to see the Iranian people take over and install a government along the lines of what it had before the Islamic regime took over in 1979. We'll see if that happens. I believe it will. I don't think we will have anything to do with it, but I would be surprised if Israel and maybe some other countries in the region don't have operatives in country to facilitate that regime change. I would be surprised. I would be surprised if that doesn't happen, because the Iranian people, as much as they want this, they're going to need help. They're going to need help. The IRGC is still in place despite the fact that there's no leadership, and they still have access to weapons. So they're going to need help. And we'll see how that plays out as well. And I would, when this first kicked off, I was thinking that the groups like Hezbollah and all the other groups that Iran was funding and supporting would retaliate on their behalf and come to their aid, but they have condemned Iran's attacks on these other Gulf states. And I don't think that they are going to be much of a help to Iran at this point. I think they are pretty much on their own. And that is a great thing. That is a great development. And I think that will go a long way towards bringing an end to this conflict sooner rather than later. I know that they've said the timeline is 4 to 6 weeks. If things keep going the way they're going, I would be surprised if it took that long, honestly. I'm not saying that it won't. I'm not saying, but I would kind of be surprised if it took that long. Especially given the retaliation of with them hitting bases in Saudi Arabia and hitting the hotel in the UAE and other targets, civilian targets, mind you, in these other countries. The reality is, this is going to be a great benefit to us. And to a lesser extent, Russia may benefit from it too. You notice they didn't come to Iran's aid. China didn't come to Iran's aid. China's trying to figure out how to deal with this, with their disruption in oil. Russia could benefit possibly from some higher oil prices if that takes place. The Gulf states, the region, they need stability. They need the area to be in a position of strength. And as long as the United States and Israel keep the pressure up on Iran, Iran has no chance. I mean, it's really just a matter of time at this point. It's really just a matter of time. This is the United States exerting their strength, their authority, and their leverage. And to a lesser extent, revenge for all of the casualties that they've inflicted on us over the last nearly 5 decades. I can't remember the exact number. I heard it. I heard somebody report it the other day. I can't remember the exact number, but this is retaliation for that on a certain level. Good. Good. It wasn't done in rage. It wasn't done in anger, at least not completely. It was controlled strength, exerting power and leverage. And that is what is needed from the United States. I can't stand all these non-interventionists who claim that there is no reason for us to intervene in any way because they're thousands of miles away and they're no threat to us. That's just stupid. Absolutely stupid. And demonstrably false. Looking at you, Thomas Massey and Rand Paul. And of course, the entire left, except for John Fetterman, who, I mean, who would have thought that suffering a stroke would reset something in his brain? I mean, don't get me wrong. He still votes with the left most of the time, but the things that he's saying and his obvious love for the country is taking precedence over his party affiliation. And that is non-existent on the left right now. So we're gonna be hanging out here for a while, but I just wanna say this before we move on to the next segment. It is a shame that Americans are dead. Nobody wants that. But at the end of the day, Iran is nearly decimated. China is contemplating their options, and they don't have many. Where we basically reset the Middle East to the point where the dream that people used to talk about of peace in the Middle East might actually be achievable at this point. And can you imagine if it's Donald Trump that's able to pull that off? The left would go absolutely apoplectic, and I am here for it. I am absolutely here for it. So we are cautiously optimistic that this is going to work out fantastically for us. And as long as the peace through strength doctrine and the deterrence that we're projecting holds up, this next chapter could be fantastic for us. Fantastic. All right, let's get a word in from our sponsor for today's show. And our sponsor for today's show, if I can pull it up. There we go. It's Carry Girl here. Carrygirl.com. Head over there if you want bold, stylish t-shirts and accessories that your wife or your girlfriend will absolutely love and wear. And if you're not sure what to pick, if you're not good with sizes, If you're not good with accessories, just grab a gift card and let her choose. That is an easy win, and she will not be disappointed, and you will be a hero. So head over to carrygirl.com. Visit carrygirl.com today. All right, y'all. I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men Briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch our great lineup. We have Sackhead Sean with the Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Jersey Joe with the Reaver of Common Sense every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. He will be on tonight. We had a great time on the round table on Sunday. So if you didn't catch us then, go ahead and check that out. It is on demand up on YouTube. And we got the new guy, the FNG, Lyle Armstrong with Beer and Bullstein, who is on Fridays and Saturdays at, I believe, 6 p.m. Eastern. I may have gotten that wrong, but please, if you're in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, please be sure to like and subscribe to all of these great shows. We are at 1,170 subscribers. We are growing faster than we thought we would. A year ago I don't even know where we were a year ago, but it wasn't good. But this has been a fantastic growth spurt. So we thank you all for liking and subscribing and sharing. And pray for us that we continue to break through. And we want to reach as many people as we possibly can. And also, please be sure to head over to the SHR shop and check out all of the great t-shirts that we have over there. 250 reasons to read source documents in honor of our 250th anniversary. There is a limited number, so please be sure to get yours before we run out. All right, now back to the briefing. Now, I talked about possible retaliation and sleeper cells and lone wolf attacks. And we had one. We had one in Austin. And I used to live in Austin for a short time. Then we moved outside of Austin. Never really visited 6th Street much, maybe a couple of times, but it is a huge party district. And by the time we moved there, I was pretty much past my party days. But yeah, on 6th Street, huge UT student party district. It was packed, and this guy decided he was going to open fire and kill as many people as he possibly could. There were 2 dead, 14 wounded. I'm not going to play the video. The video shows is really graphic, and it's sad. It's sad to see. But huge shout out to the first responders and the police who showed up within, I believe, 57 seconds of the first shots, and took this guy out. He was a Senegalese immigrant, and Senegal is 95% Muslim. He was wearing a sweatshirt that said "Property of Allah," and underneath that he had a T-shirt with the Iranian flag. In his car, he had a Quran. So, I mean, the FBI, the authorities pretty much knew right off the bat that this was an act of terrorism. Now, there was no manifesto release that we know of yet. It hasn't been officially, to my knowledge, declared an act of terrorism, but I think we can all, come on. I think we can all figure that out. This is something that we are all going to have to be aware of. We're going to have to be alert. We're going to have to, I don't want to say change our habits, but I mean, if you are licensed to carry and you frequent places like that and don't carry because it's illegal to drink in those places, maybe just back off that a little bit. Maybe. Because I'm not saying that we have to be paranoid. I'm not saying that we have to be that we have to see Islamic terror around every corner. But at the same time, don't be stupid. And as long as there are large crowds of unsuspecting people, this is a possibility. And if we have sleeper cells that are getting sleeper cells that are going to be activated, or since there's really no command and control out of Iran anymore, if they're activating themselves, we're going to have to be a little more vigilant than maybe we are used to being. There was also when this all kicked off, there was another shooting in Cincinnati that we thought may have been another retaliatory mass shooting, but it turns out that was just typical thug-related thuggery. So we won't get into that. That's a story for another time. But in Toronto, an Iranian-owned business was targeted that same night. An Iranian-owned boxing gym was shot up in a Toronto area suburb. Multiple people were injured. The RCMP has not released a motive yet, but again, come on. We're not stupid. This guy, the owner, was not a supporter of the regime, and his business was shot up. Now the Canadian press is saying that it could be a criminal dispute. It could be just unrelated violence, coincidence. Rule 39, I don't believe in coincidence. And if you get that reference, let me know in the chat or in the comments. So we don't have any evidence yet of what the motive was, but I think we can all surmise what the motive was. And when these strikes overseas happen, we know that the spillover can come over here because of the open borders policies of the United States, and Canada's even worse still. The retaliation doesn't always wear the uniform, but it's worth noting and worth keeping your head on a swivel, as I always say at the end of every show. And that's not fear, that's not paranoia, that's just the reality of the situation. That's not to say that there is necessarily confirmed Iranian direction on any of this. That's not to say that there is going to be open warfare on U.S. soil. I think we all know that that's not going to happen. But the symbolism of what we saw take place in Austin and what we saw take place in Toronto, despite the fact that that's Canada, yeah, I know. But the symbolism of it all and the timing is significant. It's significant. And when you have all of these violent incidents clustered around geopolitical events, it's worth taking note, especially given all of the, I mean, it wasn't that long ago when they actually caught someone at the border who was a terrorist, positively identified as a terrorist. So if they caught him and we have all the known getaways, come on. This is, as I've said, this is a time to be vigilant. It's not again, fear or paranoia. God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and self-control. That's 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. Being vigilant, being prepared is crucial. And it's biblical. And we can't just say, oh, we'll let the cops handle it. You have to be prepared to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your community before the cops get there. You are your own first responder. Stay calm, but stay alert. Stay vigilant. And don't be asleep at the switch when these patterns are emerging. All right, I wanted to make sure I got that out there. But I want to go back to the strikes and I want to get into the reaction, because the reaction is something that the reactions are fascinating to watch, absolutely fascinating, because three groups of people really, watching the same events unfold and the diametrically opposed reactions are amazing to watch. On one hand, you have the Iranian dissidents who are celebrating in the streets in Iran, celebrating in the streets all over the world. And then you have the American left, who is absolutely furious. And of course, the leftists like Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uyghur and all the rest of these lunatics. It's the Jews. We're doing it on behalf of Israel. We're fighting Israel's war. Shut up. Just shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. The contrast there is not nothing. The contrast is striking, and it offers us a clear diagnosis. Because when the regime's victims are celebrating and our leftists mourn, someone's moral compass is broken, completely broken. We had John Brennan. We all remember John Brennan, right? Yeah, Mike, I heard Marco Rubio's statement, but I also watched the entire statement, not just the clips. So there's that. But anyway, John Brennan, he was on BS Now, and this was his take.
It's not. Yes, there are a lot of Iranian people who despise the regime and hated Khamenei and are glad that he's dead. But also, the regime and the theocracy have a lot of people who supported them. It's a country of over 92 million people. And so they have their equivalent of, in the rural areas, conservative areas, there's sort of the MAGA equivalent in Iran. It's not. Yes, there are a lot of Iranian people.
John Brennan, let's not forget, this is the same guy who defended sending pallets of cash to the tune of what, $7-8 billion to Iran. This is the guy who said that the JCPOA would bring peace. This is the guy who has lectured us about restraint. And as we talked about before, we see what restraint got us. Now, all of a sudden, he's upset. He's terrified of the decisive action that President Trump took. And of course, there is the rumor that he's actually a Muslim. I haven't been able to verify that, but I mean, there is a lot of rumor and innuendo that is true. So, and his analysis tends to lean in that direction. So there's that. But he's part of this intelligence community that he doesn't see anything wrong with these tyrants who are inflicting pain and whatnot on their citizens. But he hates the fact that he can't control somebody who is not on board with accommodating these people, these monsters. So we had that reaction, and then there's this guy who I can't really believe is still as popular as he is. It really blows my mind that this guy is still polling in the mid-50s, despite all of his failures in what, 2 months?
Today's military strikes by the United States and Israel mark a catastrophic escalation in an illegal act of war, of aggression. Bombing cities, killing civilians, opening up a new theater of war. Americans do not want this. Americans do not want another war in pursuit of regime change. We want an answer to the affordability crisis. We want peace. Now, I may be a young mayor, but I am old enough to remember the devastating consequences of our country's pursuit of regime change in this same region not that many years ago. Now, my focus is on keeping New Yorkers safe. I've been in close contact with our police commissioner and emergency management officials. We are increasing agency coordination as well as patrols of sensitive locations out of an abundance of caution. And additionally, I want to speak directly to Iranian New Yorkers. You are a part of the fabric of this city. You are our students, our artists, our small business owners, our neighbors, our community leaders. You will be safe here.
And guess what? They don't agree with you. They do not agree with you. They are happy that this has happened. But the language there is telling. He's talking about escalation. He calls it reckless. Didn't say anything about hostages, didn't say anything about funding of terror. And of course, this is coming from a Muslim, so he's not going to. But neither is any leftist, honestly. Didn't say anything about the destabilization of the region. Didn't mention anything about how brutal the Islamic regime has been. Didn't mention anything of the thousands. I know some leftists say that you can't really believe that it's 30,000, but those same leftists are willing to believe the number coming from Hamas. But regardless, they killed thousands of their own people who were protesting. Not a peep. Not a peep about it. When we act, and make no mistake, this is in our best interest. This is absolutely in our best interest. And when America acts in its own best interest, well, then all of a sudden, we're imperialists. We're blame America for everything. It's insane. There was one take on that was actually kind of surprising when you think about it, but it was spot on, and it was from The View, of all places, if you can believe that. But of course, it was from a guest host and not any of the harpies that are usually on there. But let's take a look at this.
I look at Donald Trump and I look at Netanyahu and I see two leaders who I think politically they benefit from war. Netanyahu is facing criminal charges for corruption back home. Donald Trump is facing very low numbers and Epstein files that are not, and we will not let go away.
I do think it's threefold. One, we have 47 million Iranian women who now have a hope of freedom. That's a good thing, okay? We have an disgusting terrorist regime ended, and the people finally have hope to create their own nation again. Okay, so that's the hope. When we zoom out in geopolitical realm, okay, which is not my specialty either, but I have a ton of friends in the military who specialize in this. We see that this is actually avoiding a boots on the ground war with China when we are able to choke their oil supply, and the president and our military are exemplary in doing so right now. They've cut the oil supply from Venezuela, and they've now reduced it and choked the oil supply to China in Iran. And now what that does is presumably prevent China from having an absolute stronghold on the globe. So this is a strategic move geopolitically that we may not fully understand, but I absolutely trust that this is best for our nation, and we should be America first.
She is spot on. Absolutely spot on. Sorry about that. I think there's a delivery or something, and my dog does not like that. But anyway, that was a great take from The View, and of course, she is never going to get invited back for that. I'm surprised they actually had her back for this. Frankly, they should have known. But and the entire discussion, I watched a few minutes of it. The entire discussion was pretty good. And it was good because they actually had a conservative person on there who had an idea of what they were talking about and could articulate it well. I mean, the one who's on there that just had a kid, whatever her name is, she claims to be a Republican, and so does Anna Navarro. They claim to be Republicans, but they are mouthpieces for the left, and it's just a group of harpies just chirping about the same thing. And so to have Elizabeth Hasselbeck on and talk about this was a pretty good discussion, and that's why it'll never happen again. That's why it will never happen again. And when you contrast that with what happened in the streets, let me see if I can find that. Well, actually, before we get to the contrast, this is actually on an American street. I believe this is in New York. And just take a look at this.
Deportation! For jobs and education! #1 terrorist! U.S. imperialist! Boots on the ground, no bombs in the air! No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air! U.S. out of everywhere! U.S. out!
These people are protesting on behalf of a brutal regime that would kill them in a heartbeat. And of course, I guarantee you that there are a number of gays and lesbians in this crowd that the Ayatollah himself would toss off a building if he could. And here they are mourning the loss of that guy. These people are insane. And of course, you had the New York Times talking about in his obituary. I'm not gonna show it because you got to pay for it, and I refuse to pay for that trash. But the New York Times, in their obituary, called him a hardline cleric or something like that, a religious leader, a complex figure, just like. I believe it was it al-Baghdadi that they, in their obituary of him, called him an austere religious leader. I mean, I really, these people, they're insane. They didn't call him a terror sponsor. They didn't call him the largest state sponsor of terror. They didn't call him a killer. They didn't attribute to him any of the things that he actually was. They called him a cleric. When Muslim women were beaten up and killed in the streets, and you can find those videos everywhere, nothing. Had nothing to say. Absolutely nothing to say. But when the brutal regime leadership gets taken out, then all of a sudden, it's a problem. Then all of a sudden, they're clergy worthy of being mourned. But of course, they couldn't control everything, because this is what Iranians in this country were actually, what they actually thought of this. They're celebrating, they're dancing in the streets. And that's actually really significant, because in the Persian culture, dancing is one of the, it's one of the ways that they most highly express their appreciation for someone. And they're dancing to President Trump's song, doing the Trump dance. They absolutely love this. They love it. And the American left can't bring themselves to to celebrate this achievement. And then there's this one. I'm not sure exactly where this is, but this is also in the United States. An American flag, an Israeli flag, and an Iranian flag, all waving at the same time. Look at this guy. I mean, and this is happening all over the country, all over the world. I mean, I've seen videos of this happening in Australia, in Europe, on the streets of New York and LA. This is, did I not show that? Did you not see that? If I did show that twice, I apologize. If I didn't, well, there you have it. The people who are suffering, or who have suffered the most under this tyranny, and the people whose families have suffered the most under this tyranny, they get it. They understand this show of strength and moral superiority, put it bluntly. And the people who are lecturing us about it from the comfort of their homes and their studios, they don't get it. And if they do get it, then there's another agenda at play. This could end the regime if the Iranian people actually can stand up, if the Iranian people can do their part to topple this regime. They're probably going to need some help. This administration has made it clear they're not going to get that from us. and that's good. But there are others in the region that might, and I hope they do. Because what we don't want to do is be in this same situation a decade or two from now. This is not this is not anything new. The left has always predicted catastrophe, has always rooted against the United States. And this just feels different, not from their perspective. They're always going to do what they do. But this just feels like this is not going to be a rinse and repeat type situation. And I pray that it's not. Because these, I mean, just think about it. The dissidents, the Iranian people who dealt with this for their entire lives, they're celebrating. And the left, they're clutching their pearls. They're talking about how bad this is. One of those actually aligns with reality, and one of them doesn't. And that's something that we talk about a lot on this show. One side is living in a complete fantasy world, and the other side sees things for the way they really are. And I think you all know that I'm not into fantasy. All right. Something that has come up quite a bit over the past, I don't know, at least from what I've seen over the past 6-7 years, and that is, especially as Islamic terror has ramped up, and that is a lot of, I don't want to say, well, there's been a meme culture that has developed around around the Crusades. And there's been a lot of maybe manosphere type accounts that are talking about a modern day crusade in retaliation or in response to all of the Islamic terror that we're seeing around the world, and the expansion and the attempted takeovers in Europe and in places like Florida and Texas. King Baldwin of Israel. Yeah, I mean, that's, I know it's not historically accurate, but that is one of my favorite movies. But I'm not going to go through the entire history of the Crusades, but I do want to just let people know what it was before we get to what I actually want to talk about. And of course, you had in 1095, Pope Urban declared he declared the First Crusade in response to Islamic expansion in Jerusalem, Syria, North Africa. The Crusader states were established in 1099 after they retook Jerusalem. The Second Crusade failed. The Third Crusade, which is what Kingdom of Heaven, that movie was based on. And yes, I know it was not historically accurate by any stretch, but it was entertaining. But anyway, the reality of the Crusades as a whole, they were in response to Islamic expansion. They were in response to Islamic terror back then. The Crusaders back then were not keyboard warriors with memes. They were medieval knights and kings with armies. And they were acting on behalf of the state. It was a different time, different authority, and they had a different responsibility. There's no modern day crusade that's going to happen. Early Christians were a persecuted minority. Medieval Christians who carried out the Crusades, they were the governing authorities at the time. And so they had that responsibility. The modern church is not a state authority. Romans 13 says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. The church is no longer that governing authority. So the church has there's no mechanism by which they could declare a crusade, and this Pope would never do that anyway, because he believes that Christians and Muslims can coexist. It's a foolish notion, but he believes that, and I'll just leave that there. The church today does not command armies. The church today is responsible for shepherding souls. And so there's not going to be any crusade. But I get the sentiment. Honestly, I do. I mean, I cover this a lot when I'm reading stories about how the Islam is trying to take over. That sentiment is real. I get it. I absolutely get it. I see the Deus Vult memes. I see the Jerusalem cross. I see I even did a meme of a modern warrior with a Knights Templar cross on his shoulder. I mean, I get it. It's born of frustration over reckless immigration policies. It's frustration over throwing our doors wide open without vetting anyone coming across the border. It's born of watching these people say, we are here to take over. Watching them say, we are here to outbreed you. Watching them say, Islam is going to be in every household. Watching what they do to people who don't conform. Watching what they do to people who are trying to conform but don't do it properly. And so the question is, why haven't Christians fought back in any meaningful way? Have Christians become weak? And to a certain extent, yes, they have. But the anger that those of us who are paying attention to this feel is not really a strategy, and the memes are not scripture. They're not a mandate. So just so that we're clear, there's no advocating for violence against Muslims here at all. Not calling for Christians to take up arms and form an uprising and attack. But what we are doing is looking at the rhetoric versus our responsibility. And so what would a modern day crusade look like? What the Muslims have said in Europe and here is that they're going to outbreed us. So a modern day crusade would consist of us getting married, would consist of us raising children and raising them intentionally in the Christian faith. You can't reclaim a civilization through memes and Twitter posts. It doesn't work that way. You have to start with yourself. You have to start with your family and build out your community, your church, etc. And there's also a cultural aspect to it. Get involved. Get involved in your church. Get involved in your community. Run for city council, run for school board. Build businesses, build something that lasts. Create content. That's the path that I've chosen. Use your voice to bring attention to this stuff. Get involved in civic institutions. Again, get involved in your local community. Because they didn't storm the gates. We threw them wide open and they walked right in. And another aspect of it is spiritual. Get involved in a church that actually teaches the Bible. There are plenty of churches out there that don't. If you go to a church and they have a rainbow flag in the pulpit, run. Run, because that is not a church. Study the Bible on your own. Don't just show up on Sundays. Study the Bible on your own. And I don't mean just read, I mean study it. Like, look at different translations. Look at what the original translations, what the original text meant, what it actually said. Develop a sense of moral clarity when it comes to this stuff. And men, in particular, lead your homes, lead your communities, get involved in your churches. Choose discipline over comfort. And I know that's not easy. I'm guilty of not doing that myself sometimes. I'm not a perfect Christian. Far from it. There isn't one. There was only one. But we can always build towards getting better. If there is a crusade today, it is fought with strength, courage, fidelity, not steel, not bullets. That's not to say that that is not ever necessary. You should be prepared for that when it comes to defending yourself and your family and your community. Absolutely. A man should be capable of defending himself and his family in that way. This is a theme that we've talked about throughout this show. Strength. Strength is order. Rage and outbursts, that's chaotic. And that doesn't help anyone. The medieval crusaders, they were kings and rulers acting under authority. Modern Christians are citizens under law. So what you can govern, your home, yourself, your habits, your church, your vote. You can't govern armies or states or wars, but you can govern yourself and you can govern your family. And that is where what I referred to as a modern day crusade would start. The barbarians, they're not breaking down the gates. Our complacency left them wide open. So what are we going to do about it? This is not as I have tried to make clear, this is not a call to arms. This is a call to a responsibility. If we can return to a place of conviction, we can strengthen families, we can strengthen churches. Communities will start to stabilize. If conviction collapses, no army is going to save you. If there is to be a crusade in this generation, it will not be declared by a pope or any religious leader. It will be lived by disciplined Christians. For years now, we were told that restraint was wisdom, that appeasement was the adult thing to do, that hesitation was showing maturity, that incremental responses were how we would keep ourselves safe. But that didn't work. It invited aggression. It invited testing of our limits. It invited escalation. And it invited contempt. Operation Epic Fury put a stop to all of that. Deterrence isn't achieved with a press release. Deterrence is a consequence. And when consequences are actually real, enemies tend to take a step back and reevaluate. The time for half measures and talk is over. And let me know if you get that reference in the comments. Anyway, y'all, there was a couple of things I wanted to get to, but I am out of time. So that is going to do it for today's briefing. We're not here to just bloviate. We're here to equip Christian men and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into future generations. So if anything that was said here today matters to you, please don't just watch. Share it, share the channel, share this episode, bring other men into the fight because we need them. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all of our great designs about bold faith, true grit, unapologetic patriotism, and check out the SHR shop as well, which is also can be found on missionreadymen.com. And just click on SHR shop and you'll see all the designs for all the different shows. The Conservative Sherpa shirt for BZ, the Reaver of Common Sense, the Edge of Liberty shirt for Sean. We have an SHR logo shirt, a logo sweatshirt, and the 250 Reasons to Read Source Documents t-shirt is also there. So be sure to check all of that out. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.